Now, as I was saying, hopefully you have successfully imported the OVA file from last class and you have set up the necessary tools. We will be using this one only because, and I've been wanting to show this for a while, I've been wanting to show the enum for Linux for analyzing and discovering problems with Samba configured on old systems. Because to be honest, the default configuration from Windows 7 is also open to these vulnerabilities. It's one of the reasons why Microsoft pushed so hard for people to stop using Windows 7 and to have everybody move over to Windows 10 is because it is such a huge vulnerability. Okay? Because we are using the OVA file, the password is of course tour. All right? So we are going to need our Kali up and running for today's class. Also, we are going to need to ensure that we have downloaded the Kioptrix 4 Vmdk file. Please note that this file is actually, I don't know if I can make this better. This Vmdk file is actually a VMware file. A lot of your pentest activities, a lot of them don't include an OVA file. A lot of them just give you the file that they stole off the network, I guess is the underlying premise. And a lot of these come from environments that frankly run ESXi, which is a VMware product. So the belief is, here's a Vmdk file that we're able to steal from the network. Go ahead and attack it. Being able to import these Vmdk files is very handy. And I thought, given we had already done a bunch of configurations, and to be honest, given this isn't really that complicated an attack, it's really only 6 pages. There's not a lot. We've seen a lot of this stuff before. There's one new concept in all of this, and that is searching for processes that run as root. That's the only really new feature of this specific attack. And given that, I thought this would be a great time for us to take a look at some of these other technical needs. Specifically, importing a Vmdk file into VirtualBox. Okay? So we do not go file import appliance. Okay? What we do is we create a new virtual machine. Okay? So go file, new. And this virtual machine is Ubuntu based. So I am going to call it K4 UBU. And as soon as I get to the B in Ubuntu, it says, oh, you probably want a 64-bit version of Linux Ubuntu. And that's fine. Okay? Again, how did I get here? I have downloaded my Vmdk file. Okay? I cannot import this Vmdk file. I have to add it to a virtual machine. There's a couple of ways of doing it. You can go machine new, or you can just simply click on the new icon here. We're going to call it K4. It still thinks it's Windows, but it's an Ubuntu VM. So when we type in UBU, and as we get to the B, it says, oh, you want Linux. That's fine. We click on Next. Because it is Ubuntu based, it will make some recommendations. These recommendations are fine until we get to the hard disk. On this screen, it is very important that you do not add a disk. You click on the first radio button that says do not add virtual hard drive and click on create. You know you're doing it right when it says, hey, wait a minute, you want to create a virtual machine without a hard disk? You won't be able to start it until you fix this problem. That's exactly what we want to do, because we want to add the existing hard drive image that we were able to download. Okay, so again, what did I do? Create a new virtual machine. I'm going to call it K4 or Kioptrix 4. Doesn't really matter. But I'm going to type in UBU. And then it says, oh, you want an Ubuntu. That's just to make my choices. You can also, of course, select Linux and 64-bit Ubuntu from those drop-down lists. I don't care. Because it is Ubuntu, 1 gig of memory is sufficient. We will click Next, and it's on this screen where you have to ensure that you say, do not select a disk, because we have our disk right here. When we click on Create, it says, are you sure you want to continue with this? Yes, I want to continue. And of course, it's very fast. It's a very fast process, but we have to make a couple of edits. Okay? The first is, we don't have a hard drive. Okay? We can go through everything, take a look at all of our settings. General doesn't matter. System 1 gig is fine. Display doesn't matter. It's a command line server, that's fine. Storage. All we really have is the IDE and the CD-ROM attached. With our SATA device though, right here along the edge, you have this little icon, and when you move on top of it, it says, yes. Yes, Radcliffe. Are you still back in the wizard creating the hard drive or creating the virtual machine? Okay, so I'll do that one more time. Just give me 1 sec. Okay, so I'm going to delete this. So you don't have to delete. I'm just going to quickly recreate it. So what I am going to do is I'm going to click on New. I'm going to call it K4 Ubuntu. So you got that, right, Radcliffe? Okay, you have 1 gig next. On this one, you select the first radio button, do not add a disk, and then click on Create. So you say do not add, okay? And click on Create. And on this one it says, are you sure? And you click on Continue. Okay? Okay, perfect. So now we have our K4 server. We can go into the settings for that server. Okay? At this point, general, system, display, those settings are all fine. The only two we really need, and frankly, audio, USB serial, all of the other settings are fine. The only two we need to focus on are network, as always, and in this case, storage. Let's look at storage first. We see we have a CD-ROM, but no hard drive. When you click on the SATA, the SATA, Serial AT Attached Controller, when you click on that, you can add a an optical drive, but we don't want to do that. We want to add a hard drive. This little icon right here that says Add Hard Disk, we are going to click on that. And that will bring up something very similar to the Media Manager. Okay? Is everybody at this point? So the question from Mamtra, my internet is working slow, so I'm not able to download my file. Can you do the video recording for K4 that I can do it later? The answer is yes. I will upload this video later for you. I'm sorry I missed that in the chat window, Mamta. So there will be a video for this, and if you have questions, please do not hesitate to email me. Okay? So I hope everybody is at this point, and what our drive here is not in this list. Okay, whoever that is, please, Manpreet. Okay. Okay. Use existing disk. Thank you. So if you've got an old version of VMware, I'm sorry, a VirtualBox. If you have an old version of VirtualBox, you're going to see what Mamtra, or what, Manpreet, I think that was, saw, which is a little bit different, but it's the same process. Okay? Okay. But it's the same thing. You need to click on Add, and then you need to go to wherever you downloaded your VM and select it. Click on Open, and you either click on Choose or click on OK, depending. But at the end of the day, you have to select that VMware file so that it now says whatever you downloaded. Please note, it's going to work on it from wherever you specified. If you take a look here, it is saying, hey, you've got this in this folder over here. It's not storing it where it's put the rest of your files. Some people like to move it around. For today's class, we don't need to worry about that. Click on OK. No, and now you should have a hard disk. If anybody is having problems, you're welcome, Mamta. If anybody is having problems, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to network. Okay? Again, feel free to speak up or to type in the chat. I am looking pretty closely at the chat window right now. The next thing is our network. We only need one adapter, but of course, because this is brand new, it assumes it wants to work on NAT. We do not use NAT. We, of course, use the host-only adapter. We should only have one. And, of course, promiscuous mode, allow all. Okay? So again, after we have our storage set up, go to Network, ensure that you're using the host-only adapter, ensure that it should default to the only one you have, but ensure that you set promiscuous mode to allow all. Once you have done those two settings, you should be okay. If there are no questions, I'm going to move on. I am not seeing any questions in chat. I'm going to move on. Now that we have configured our K4 server, I'm just going to arrange my workspace just a little bit, we can start it up. It may take a minute, but that's fine. It's not exactly the smallest VM that we've played with, but that's fine. We will fire it up. It'll take as long as it takes. Please note, I love this. Please note, because it's gone a long time without firing up, the disk management utility checks the hard drive. That's what that progress bar was doing. It was doing an integrity check on the hard drive in Linux, because as far as it's concerned, it hasn't been fired up in quite some time. That is to be expected. That's exactly what we want to see. Okay? As always, when we fire up our K4 server, we really don't get any information. No username, no password. We barely have an indicator of the operating system. But that's fine. That's why we have Kelly. The first thing we are going to do, I don't know who those people are who just came on. I've already started the lecture, so you're going to have to look at the video later on. Okay, I'm glad that you are muted on your mics. I do appreciate that. But whoever did just join us, I am recording this. You'll be able to see it later on. Okay, first things first. We need to do some scanning and see what is running on our network. As always, we need to verify. And if you properly set up from this in our last class where we edited our connections and we enabled both of our adapters, you should see you have a host-only as well as a NAT adapter. We are going to focus on the host-only network, which is 56. First things first, nmap 192.168.56.0/24 to scan the network. Your results are going to be a little different than mine. For example, when I discover this new VM, its IP address is 179. Of course, mine is 176. I am going... Yes. Yes. then you haven't set up your VM properly. Okay? Back in your previous class, when we were setting up this, you should have two adapters. Adapter 1 and adapter 2 for Kali. I bet you only have one adapter, correct? Yes. So I don't know if you can see my screen right now, Ratcliffe, but I have under network settings, I have two adapters. You need to have two adapters. Okay? So follow along. Take a look at the video from yesterday, and we'll pick it up later. So you're just going to have to follow along. I'll make this video available shortly after, but that's what's going on, is that you don't have the second adapter. You will be able to engage in the activity, however. Your adapter, what is the IP address? Radcliffe, what is it? For your adapter, not the loopback, but ETH0. Yeah. So, unfortunately, again, it's using the NAT for that adapter. So, yeah, you're just going to have to follow along, pay attention to what I'm doing, and then we'll fix this later. Okay, sir? Thank you. All right. Thank you. Alrighty. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a more detailed scan, because we know the last one in our list is always the scanning machine. We can assume that this is Kali. We can verify it up here. So, and we know that this is our DHCP, and we know that this is our gateway. So we don't know what this is. We can assume that this is the K4 server, and this is what we wish to attack. And that's what we're going to do at this time. Do a more detailed scan. -S uppercase V, -uppercase O, oops, and of course the space after the uppercase O, and then the double click to copy and paste. Your IP should be different. And when we do that, we will see that we really don't get a lot of extra information other than Samba appears to be running. Samba is a very nice service for hackers to take a look at. The reason why it is nice is because there's a lot of vulnerabilities with Samba. As I was mentioning at the top of this lecture, it is so problematic that Microsoft is literally pushing people to upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 10. The reason being, and I used to be able to show this when everybody still had access to a Windows 7 VM. I used to set up Windows 7 in VirtualBox, turn on network sharing, and that's all I needed to do. And I could start scanning and attacking that machine. Because even up to Windows 7, Samba was still vulnerable to a lot of these attacks. Which is why, as I've mentioned in the past, the modern versions of Samba block legacy versions of Samba. They don't allow connections, and frankly, they don't allow us to attack older versions of SMB server processes running. Which is why we went through the process of creating a separate Kali virtual machine, updating it, and installing this HotWax toolkit. There's a bunch of stuff that's been installed on this version of Samba that will allow us to attack this virtual machine. The first one, actually frankly the only one, I went through all of this just so that we could type the following command. enum for Linux. We have played with this in the past, it simply hasn't worked. Okay? With this, however, we've got this IP address, and that's who we want to attack. So it's enum for Linux, and then copy and paste the IP address that you want to attack. And right away, we're already starting to see better results. The last time we ran this, it would fail. Instance after instance, it would simply fail. There is a lot that gets returned. Again, this is exactly why Samba no longer wants to support legacy versions of itself, because of all of these vulnerabilities. Now, as you scroll through, you start seeing some information. A lot of instances of Samba have these kinds of things. They are standard Windows groups. We can ignore those. As you keep looking through the results, this is pay dirt right here. More specifically, these 3 lines right here. It was trying to enumerate users from the list. It was saying, hey, tell me what users exist on your environment. And the Samba server running on K4 came back and said, these 3 users are available. As we have said time and time again, the last thing anybody ever wants to do is give any information to hackers. If they have your username, they can start trying to figure out your password. It's not easy, especially on modern systems. If we were to start attacking SSH using those users, we might eventually succeed. It'll take a very long time. Okay? Yes. Yep. Okay. Would you like to share your desktop with me? Or just share Kali, actually, not your desktop. All I really need to do is see Kali. And before we go any further, you did do the Ansible playbook install yesterday? Okay. So show me Kali. Okay. Are you using, yep. Okay, can you hit the up arrow, please, a couple more times? Did you complete? You might need to up arrow, keep going. Keep going. Up arrow. Not copy, paste, up arrow. I want to see the commands from yesterday, so keep hitting the up arrow, please. Again, okay. That one, you might need to run that command again. It might not have completed the install yesterday. Something may have failed. So again, like Radcliffe, I'm going to ask you to follow along, but I want you to run that command again. So at this point, I'm not sure who it is I'm talking to, but at this point, if you could hit enter again, please. And let it do that update. Okay, sorry, CD. Hot wax. Perfect. And hit the up arrow twice. Enter. So let that run again. Okay. And if it gives you any red, again, that's pink. That's not a problem. Okay. We're looking for red. So let it run through its thing again and make sure everything installs properly, and then come back to the video and pick up your attack. Okay? Thank you. If you can stop sharing, please. Thank you. Alrighty. For everybody else, if the enum for Linux worked properly, you should see these 3 users. And as I was saying, you never want to give hackers any information. Usernames, authentication in most systems is based on username password combinations. The password is the hard bit, there's no question, but the username is still half of the equation. Okay? Now that I have 3 usernames, and if you take a look way back up here, I also know that Apache is running. Let's take a look at that. Okay, now I could try attacking with OpenSSH. I could start attacking that. We've seen this already though. We saw this with Metasploitable and going after Stan, Kyle, Kenny, and Cartman. So we don't have to do that again. And to be honest, we still haven't unarchived our password file for an SSH attack. And frankly, we have also not installed Medusa. So if you wanted to do an SSH attack against these 3 accounts, you would have to install Medusa and you would have to unzip that. You're welcome to try. That's not what I want to focus on. Okay? What I want to do next, now that I've discovered some IDs, I want to open up a new tab and do some web scans. Okay? Just going to make sure I'm not missing anything from my lecture notes. Doesn't look like it. So first, let's do a scan with derb. And this is why we record. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Just ignore that, please. Okay. It is beneficial to have a text editor going and capturing your information. First off, paste? No. Copy, paste. That is K4. All right. Way back up here, just so I have it all captured properly. I should try and capture the IP address of my virtual machine, my Kali, which is 176, right here. Copy, paste, and that is Kali. All right. When I did my enumeration for Metasploitable, I discovered 3 user IDs, Lone Ferret, John, and Robert. I should capture those as well. Copy selection, Lone Ferret, John, and Robert. I should be keeping these things as a running tally of my information. Okay? I also am fairly certain that I pasted something at the command prompt here. Good, I didn't. Awesome. So, I've got some intel that I was able to gather. Let's make our work area a little bit cleaner, because we have a lot of stuff going on today. Okay, well, hell with you two. Move you off like that. Okay. Next thing we want to do are our web scans. So let's take a look at derb. And of course we want to scan our Kali. So we'll highlight, copy, over here, right click, and paste clipboard. And when we do a scan, which seems to have scrolled off on me, which is fine, we'll just do this. It wants a protocol. Okay, that's fine. http:// I forgot to include, which is an easy fix. Okay, didn't come up with much. There is clearly something going on, something called logout, something called index.php, something called member, something called logout and member. So it looks like there might be some kind of a web application available to us. Let's see what Nikto tells us. -H, and again, because I still have it in memory, I should be able to right click and paste selection. And when we run Nikto, we'll let it do its thing. We have some session ID information. That's interesting. But really, not much else. I shouldn't have done it there. That was a mistake. Oh well, we're fine. I should have done my scans over here, but that's okay. Okay? So, both Derb and Nikto reported that there is something akin to a website running here. There's some session ID stuff going on that's interesting. Don't really get any application stuff from Nikto, but we do get some pretty good indications from Derb. Does somebody have a question? Sorry, I thought I heard somebody's mic go hot. That's fine. Clearly there's some kind of a web application running here, so why don't we take a look at that? We'll go to our start menu, even though it's not a start menu, and we will fire up our browser. Because this is a brand new instance of Kali, all of the stuff that we've done before is simply not available, and that's fine. Okay. I'm going to minimize it just because, again, I don't have a lot of real estate, and I don't really need a lot of real estate. I should still have my IP address in my memory, so I should be able to paste it in my browser and see what I see. And right away, we see a member login page. Okay. Now, this is where things get a little bit, for me, less than ideal. Okay, because in the real world, I would try these three user IDs in row, in sequence, I should say. If I was to try Lone Ferret, it actually breaks the web application. So I think the value here is that if I try Lone Ferret and it doesn't work, I would close down the browser, start a new browser, and attack the next user. Okay? I've already been to the website. It's going to be in my history. And then I would try John. And the attack that I would do against John is the standard SQL injection. We'll assume that it's MySQL. All right? We highlight our injection and we paste it because it is a password. All right, and because it's a password, we can't see our string. Now, to be honest, we could go in and we could change the type from password to text so we could see what we're typing. But it's easier, because we already have Notepad going, to type in our injection. I guess I can't easily make the font bigger, but that's fine. I hope you can make out what I'm doing. It is our standard injection. I'll just move it over here so everybody can see it. And actually, I will also, I've lost the chat. If people were chatting to me, I'm sorry, I just realized my chat window was hidden. So let me bring up the chat again. Doesn't look like anybody's added to chat. Awesome. And the command that I am injecting is the following. Tick or 1 is equal to 1. And then we're just going to try the MySQL hash. This is the injection that I am using, our standard MySQL SQL injection. Okay. When I try that, it lets me log in as John. And of course, John's password is something ludicrous. But there is value in copying and pasting that. Let's see if that works with Robert. And we are again going to use our SQL injection. I just used Roger or Robert. And it says, John, my name is John, which is why there's something wrong or wonky about this. We're not sure what's going on here, and frankly, that's out of our scope. But for whatever reason, every time we successfully log in as someone, It keeps that information a little too persistently for my liking, which is how I discovered that I really need to shut down and restart the browser for each one of these attacks. Okay? I'm going to go back in and I'm going to try Robert and the exact same injection that I had before. And when I do that, I see that, wow, Robert's got a really wonky password. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to take note of that. I'm not going to use it. There's no way I'm going to try and type that in every time I want to try and attack them. But that's interesting. Again, if I try this exact same attack, now that I know, and you don't have to do this third one, it's out of scope. But given what I've seen, I might try an attack again against Lone Ferret. And again, I am going to use my standard SQL injection. And when I do that, oops, something went wrong with your member page. Please contact your local administrator to fix this issue. And this process here, even clicking on back, trying John, and then trying to log in with an SQL injection, still causes some problems. So, the lesson from that is if you try an SQL injection and something unexpected happens, but it doesn't look like an SQL failure, and then future injections fail, okay? Let's recreate exactly what happened. I tried logging in as Lone Ferret. And I, of course, tried my standard SQL injection, and I logged in. And it didn't throw an error. It said user Lone Ferret. Oops, something went wrong. I then go back and try somebody else with the SQL injection. And I'm getting a different kind of error. I would be suspicious, all right? It looks like something worked the first time, something didn't work the second time. Let's close it down. Let us try a clean injection. Go back to that IP address. Try again as John, and again my SQL injection. And that's when it works. And that tells me that there's something a little bit too persistent about this connection process. Okay? I don't understand it yet, but I now have a password. And as always, once I have a password, I am hoping that I have a lazy user that reuses that password from one place to another. Unless there are no questions, I am going to move forward. Does anybody have a question? Okay. I'm not hearing anything. I'm not seeing anything in the chat window, so I'm going to move on. Now that I've got a username, password, and an IP address, I am going to go and open up a new tab and start an SSH session. And it is, of course, John at, and this is why we are using our notepad so we can track, highlight the target IP address, come on over here and paste it at the prompt, or you can of course type it in. All right, because again, this is the first time this version of Kali is talking to this virtual machine. It wants to say, hey, do you want to store this session information, this SSH information locally? Yes. And now it wants John's password. And I could try typing that in, but that's a lot. And you've all seen how bad a typer I am. So highlight, copy, come on over here, right click, paste from the clipboard. Doesn't look like anything happened, but of course it did. And it lets us in. And it says, welcome to the LigGoat security system. We are watching. Sure, okay, whatever. Lego shell is in place so you don't screw up. There's a shell in place. What does that mean? Check the question mark or help for the list of allowed commands. So it's only allowing us to do a specific set of commands. Okay, I just lost somebody. Hopefully they will be able to record or check back to the video later. But they're saying you're only allowed to do these commands based on this shell. And I don't believe them. So what if I type in, who am I? It's not allowing the who am I command. Maybe they have a point here. Let's do an ls-al. Okay, so it's letting me do the ls command and it's letting me do arguments to my command. Unfortunately, they left the command echo in place. If you take a look, and you know what, I haven't even looked at my notes in so long, I hope I haven't missed anything. Got that, got that, got that. Perfect. I am now halfway down page 4 of the handout. In our discussion of remote shells that we can use, I gave you a link to a list of shells that's pretty significant. It's actually a really nice list of shells that you can try when you're trying to do remote exploits. And one of them is the shell that we see on page 4 of the handout. If you don't have the Word document open, I'm just going to copy and paste it here so you can all see it, but it is this shell here, this shell execution. We can use that in our attack here. I'll type it here so everybody can see it, because it might scroll up and out of place very quickly. Okay, so the shell injection, and I can't copy and paste unfortunately, so it's this command. Because one of the allowed commands is echo, we can use this, and we know that these commands will accept arguments. We can use the echo command to do an os.system call, and with the os.system call we can specify that doesn't look right, but okay, whatever. We can try doing a system call, and with the system call we are going to load our own shell. Whatever shell that is running here that limits the commands we can run, we'll say, okay, well, let's try running a different shell. So I want to type that in at the command prompt, that command right there. So it is the echo command, and the command we are echoing is os.system, open bracket, single tick, bin bash. Just like that. Tick, closing bracket, and enter. And right away we can see I have a different shell. The way that I know I do is because I can type in the who am I command. Okay? Any questions? Yes? Because it is one of the, I guess, 7 commands that I'm allowed to run. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 commands that I'm allowed to run. These, okay, that's a great question, by the way, and I appreciate it. That was a great question. The reason is because I'm very limited in what I can do. If I can get out of this limited shell, then I can try attacking more greatly. And to be honest, this K series, this Kioptrix series, as we've seen over and over again with all K1 through K4, we won't be playing with K5, I don't have time. But every time we've seen, they try and use some kind of obscurity trick to limit what you can do. The moment you get around their controls, you find vulnerabilities. So rather than fix the vulnerabilities, they throw up word blocks or roadblocks to prevent you from attacking. So if you get nothing else from this series, don't use security through obscurity. All right? If your users can get around those techniques at limiting them, they will discover vulnerabilities. What you need to do is you need to maintain your systems to ensure those vulnerabilities do not exist. Because I was able to echo specifically the system call for bin bash I was able to launch a new shell, and I'm able to execute commands that simply were not possible before. Last time Drawn echoed the who or ran the whoami command, it failed. Because I have a better shell running, when I run whoami, it actually works. Any other questions? That was a great question, Radcliffe. Thank you. If there are no other questions, I'm going to move on. One of the better ways, there are two great ways for trying to become root that we really haven't talked about right now. One of them is looking for programs that run as root. We will look at that. I think next week we will be looking at that. When we actually take a look and see if there's a special SUID bit set for any executables. We will look at that next week. That's out of scope right now. So that's a program that can run as root. The other way is to look for programs that are currently running as root. And that's what today's activity is about. Okay? One of the steps of looking for the ability to escalate yourself to root is to take a look at the PS command. And that's what we're going to do in our updated shell. Because to be fair, if I type in the PS command right now, it says, no, you're not allowed to do that. But in my new shell, I am allowed to type in the PS command, okay, which is very handy, okay. Given that I am allowed to type in the PS command now, I can also type in PS-EAF. But, and the EAF is, I'm sure you saw this semester 1 with Brad when you were looking at Unix in general. The EAF switch for PS allows us to search for all processes running, give me as much information as possible. But we're only interested in the word root. I'm going to look through the results for the string root. That's what the grep command does. And when I do that, it returns all processes run as root. Most importantly are these two processes right here. Right away, we have again seen lazy users who couldn't figure out how to get MySQL running properly, so they just ran it as root. You never want to do that. You never want to allow processes to run as root if you can avoid it. Because if someone can hijack that process, they can then run as root. And that's exactly what we are going to do. We see right here that there is a process running as root that uses MySQL. We also see that there is an application that appears to look into a database to allow people to log in and log out. Let us see if we can't figure out some database connection information related to that. Okay? As we did yesterday, or last class, whenever that was, I can't remember, we need to check out the directory that has the web application. Okay? It is in the document root. We can see it right here. Okay? It wasn't yesterday, it was a while ago. Last week maybe even. Okay? I believe it was last week now that I think about it. All right, and right away we have some PHP files. We have a database.sql file. Let's take a look at that. And it has some username, password stuff, John1234. That looks like a simple create members database. That doesn't give me anything. Let's take a look at this check login. Let's do this again, just so we're all on the same page. Let's look at the check login.php page. And right away, we see, if we scroll up a little bit, we see that we have a username and password and a MySQL Connect. And again, we can do the grep as we did with the K3 server. We can look for MySQL Connect and see, just for looking for clues, but this application is more simplistic than that one. So our search for credentials is even easier. And again, we have somebody logging in as root, which is even more egregious this time. They don't even have a root password, which is, of course, horrifying. It's bad enough that they are logging in through the web application as root. That's bad enough, but they've done it without a password, which is simply unforgivable. Okay? Nevertheless, we have our vector of attack. We know, I did that wrong, I'm sorry. We know back here that the MySQL process, this one here, is running as root. This is the user ID of the process. This is the process ID. This is the parent process ID. This is the date and time it was started, I believe. This is the terminal, if it is running on one. Amount of CPU cycles it's using, I believe. And this is the process itself. And it's based on the MySQL safe process. Okay? We also have the ability now to log in to the database members with root and this password, but we're not even going to need to do that. As we have seen in the past, we can MySQL-u root, like that. It will ask us for a password if there is a password. Clearly there is not. So we are now logged in to the database server as root, which is, of course, horrifying. Everybody understand that? Are there any questions? Because frankly, we're almost done at this point. Okay. Alrighty. Sorry, I just got an email and I want to make sure that I wasn't missing anything because people are having a hard time I'll just go away. I was having a hard time. People are having a hard time. So we've talked about that. We've done all that. Perfect. If you take a look at page 5 of the handout. One of the things, actually no, go straight down to page 6 of the handout, because that's really the activity that I've done. One of the things that might be available, and this is not always available, but it's something worth checking. Once you have been able to connect as root, you may be able to, at this point, execute things as root in the system. Okay, and that's kind of what we've had here. There is a module called sys_execute, EXEC, which is a module in MySQL that allows you to execute system commands. It is, of course, dangerous because if you can execute system commands, you do so as the user ID. We are in as root, which is the same root in this case as the server root. Okay, there's no difference in this case. User root is the same as server root. If this module, and it is installed, then we can execute it. Okay? And really, at the end of the day, what we want to do is we want to add ourselves to the list of users called admin, and that's what I forgot to do. So I am going to go back and I'm going to do the, and you can just follow along at this point. I just want to prove something before I go any further. SSH John at 192.168.56.179. They're going to want the password. The password is my name is John. Hopefully I didn't type it in wrong perfectly. All right. We already know that I can't do the cat command. Okay. I'm not allowed to take a look at the necessary file. But as I've said, I can use the echo command, do os.system, because I want to take a look at the groups. All right? Because groups. When we take a look at this file here, which is a list of all the groups, there is an admin group. Okay? is it? There it is, right at the bottom. There's a group called admin. And when we take a look at our sudoers file, it won't let me. But if we were to take a look at that sudoers file, there's a chance that it might let us use that admin group. That's a common tactic for people using sudoers. They'll create a group, and anybody who's a member of that group will get access to that set of permissions, which right now looks like it's only Lone Ferret. Okay? So, I did this so I could show you what we're doing over here. I am, as you can see on page 6 of the handout, I am adding myself to the admin group by doing the sysexecute module in MySQL. And it looks something like this. Select sys_exec, and with that we're going to supply a system command, a command line command. And the command we're specifying is usermod. We are going to add to the group admin, we are going to add the user John. Again, this is changing the environment we are attacking. So this is never good to do in a red team attack. Okay? Nevertheless, it's what we are going to do. I've added John to the admin group. Let's see what that does. I forgot the semicolon. I lost the query. Well, let's try that again. Select sys_exec upper bracket tick, and I imagine this is -G. I have a typo in my command. That's what I did wrong. And John. Tick bracket semicolon like that. And this is what you're looking for. Okay? You want to get this result here that looks like it was able to connect. It looks like it dropped my connection and reestablished my connection. That's interesting. And it might be because I have 2 sessions running here and it's just confusing it unnecessarily. It's possible, okay? But this becomes the real test. Exit out, and still, John, still running that bash shell, I can type in the sudo command and use su. It wants the password for John. We know that the password is right here. My name is John. Copy, come on over here, right click, paste from clipboard, hit enter. Who am I? And I have become root. Okay? And that attack took just about 1 hour. Are there any questions before I review? If you have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat or feel free to talk. I have not heard anybody talk since Radcliffe mentioned his question. I believe that was last. Otherwise, okay, someone just went hype. Yes, Radcliffe. That's okay. Yes, it is in the notes. If you take a look on page, halfway down page 4 of the notes, right below the OS command, the os.system command for echo, I have the ps-eaf grep command right there, and it is in the image as well, and I show you the results that we wanted to focus on. Okay? But, oh no, wrong one. It's after that. The command here is ps-eaf pipe grep, and we are looking for the root. Okay? We also wanted to take a look at etc group as well. And that shows us if there is an admin group for sudo. That's the step that I missed. That's the step that I went back to and tested again. Because really what we want to see is sudo in place. And if it is in place, is there a group of admins that we can try and add ourselves to? And that's kind of what we did today. We circumvented, after we got an instance of Kali up and running, so that we could simply finally do a thorough analysis of the SMB vulnerabilities. And that was first and foremost, that what last class was all about. Making sure that I could actually take a look and see the results of a thorough SMB scan. Unfortunately, I did it on the same page as I did my web scans, and it might scroll off, but that's fine. By being able to do a thorough scan, I was able to discover some users, which is always nice, all right? It's the easy half, but it is still, nevertheless, half of the information. Robert, John, and Lone Ferret again. It discovered it a number of different ways. That's the beauty of the enum for Linux. It enumerates information about Samba on a target environment. This target environment was, of course, running Samba. We had to downgrade Samba in Kali to make it work. The hot wax set of tools did that for us. And if you were paying attention, it actually compiled a new version of Samba and put it in place. An old version so that the enum for Linux command worked. It discovered our users. We used that information to try and do an SQL injection on this site. Okay? When we were able to do that, it showed us a password. People being lazy, we were able to use that and start an SSH session. First off, they're storing the passwords in plain text. Never should do that. But even if they were encrypted, we've seen ways of discovering that encrypted information. What's more egregious is that they are using root as the user to connect to the database. And more egregious than that is they do not have a password for root. We were able to use that information, and a little known and often not installed, but installed in this case, sysexec command, or I should say module, in MySQL allows us to do system calls. The system call we did was the usermod Unix command. We added to the group admin, we added the user John. And when we did that, if I now take a look again, I have in the admin group not only Lone Ferret, but John as well. Also, if I try taking a look at sudoers, it says no. But if I sudo cat etc sudoers, it wants John's password again. My name is John. And the admin group isn't here. Oh, there it is, right there. The admin group. Anybody who's member of the admin group gets root privileges. As I said, this is quite a common configuration. Because the admin group exists right here, we wanted to add John. Because MySQL runs as root and we can log in as root, we were able to make this system command as it's running as root and add John to the admin group. Once we did that, we did sudo su and we became root in the system. Are there any questions? Other than Mamta's question. Yes, that's all for today. After this, I'm going to do competency and answer any questions. Radcliffe is first on the list. but if anybody else, okay, Radcliffe, I'm going to ask you to hold for 1 second. I'm going to give everybody else, just 1 sec. Perfect. And so if you're okay, then what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up to anybody else who has questions, but initially I have to do some work here with my recording. So things are going to get a little weird on this